Caleb's gauntleted hand burns against my waist as he lifts me onto the stone counter like I weigh nothing. The fire roars behind us, flames licking at my back, but the heat in his eyes blazes hotter. My flour-dusted apron looks obscene pressed against his black armor, soft linen crushed against sharpened steel. Outside the kitchen door, his counsel waits to decide if I will be banished or bound to him forever. Inside, his thumb traces slow, possessive circles over my hip, like he has already made his choice. "Tell me you are afraid of me, little Omega." His mouth brushes my ear, voice rough as gravel. "Tell me you want to leave, and I will let you go. I will rebuild your bakery, send you away with gold, and never darken your doorway again." My heart slams against my ribs. I should take the escape he is offering. Instead, I tilt my head until my lips nearly touch his. "I am not afraid of you, Your Majesty." Something fractures in his eyes, control splintering like ice, and I realize too late that I have just fed a starving wolf. 3 moons ago, I never imagined it would end like this. The dough is too soft, but the children are already watching me with hollow eyes, so I pretend it is perfect. Hands washed, I call, elbow deep in the big mixing bowl. Little fingers shoot into the air, 10, 12, 15 of them, grimy and eager. I sigh, jerk my chin toward the cracked basin. Water first, thieves later. They giggle as they scramble, bare feet slapping across the stone floor of the bakery. It's barely dawn. The sky, still the color of old ash, but the ovens are awake, brick mouths glowing, breathing heat against my cheeks. I have exactly 2 sacks of flour to stretch over 3 days, a scoop of salt, and a stubborn refusal to let any of these orphans go to sleep hungry. I am Talia, Omega kitchen girl, and miracles are apparently part of the job. "Smaller pieces, Mira," I murmur, guiding a tiny hand as she pinches off dough. "If you make them fat, they'll bake raw in the middle." "Like Lord Gareth," one of the boys snickers. "All puff, no bread." I choke on a laugh. "Hush. You want his steward closing us for treason?" We shape rolls together, a crooked army marching across the battered trays. I brush them with the last of yesterday's watered milk, whispering a prayer to any god that likes the smell of yeast. When I slide them into the oven, the heat licks my arms, turning the fine hairs to gold. For a moment, with the smell of rising bread in my lungs and children humming off-key around me, I almost forget how close to ruin we are. The reminder comes with hooves, thunder on the cobbles outside, too heavy for farmers' carts. The laughter in the bakery dies mid-breath. I wipe my hands on my apron and move to the front window, heart already sinking. 3 riders in the king's colors pull up in front of our door, black and crimson banners snapping behind them. Their horses are sleek and restless, armored like the men who hold their reins. Tax riders. Of course, Master Henrik appears beside me, wringing his cap between work-rough fingers. "Stay in the back, Talia," he mutters. "Your tongue is sharper than my knives." "So is theirs," I answer, but he's already shuffling toward the door. The riders do not wait to be invited. They push inside on a gust of cold air and authority, bringing with them the metallic smell of coin and steel. The tallest of them steps forward, unrolling a parchment with exaggerated care. "By decree of His Majesty, King Caleb of Dravorn," he drones. "All businesses within the outer ring are required to render the increased war tithe effective immediately." Henrik's face goes gray. "War tithe? But we paid last moon. War is expensive," the rider says. His gaze drifts over the empty shelves, the soot-stained ceiling, the children peeking from behind the counter. Bored, indifferent. "You owe 3 gold crowns by sundown." 3 crowns. He might as well ask us for the moon. "I don't have it," Henrik whispers. "We barely look around you. I feed the streets forgotten, not the high tables. We can't pay that. Then the ovens are forfeit." The rider folds the parchment, as if the matter is settled. "The crown will claim the property to recoup its losses." The words hit me like a physical blow. Without the ovens, there is no bread. Without the bread, the children scatter back to alleys and gutters, and the thin piece of life I've carved out here turns to dust. Something hot and reckless surges up in my chest. "You can't take them," I say, stepping out from behind the counter. Henrik hisses my name, but it's too late. The rider's gaze snaps to me, skimming my flour-streaked apron, my loose braid, the omega mark at the hollow of my throat. His lip curls, the way nobles do when they smell something beneath them. "And what exactly will stop us, girl?" he asks. I don't have an answer. My hands curl into fists anyway. The second rider nudges his companion, smirking. Show him, Terran. Show them His Majesty is not without generosity. Terran snaps his fingers. A third man steps forward, carrying a polished wooden tray covered with a silver dome. When he lifts the lid, the bakery fills with a rich, heavy smell, roasted meat, wine, strange spices that never make it this far down from the castle. His Majesty sends surplus from his own table, Terran proclaims. See how your king feeds even the outer ring while he prepares for war. The children's eyes go wide. Henrik sways, torn between hunger and humiliation. I move before I think. I take the offered spoon, scoop up a bite of the king's feast, and put it in my mouth. It is perfect. The meat is tender, the sauce balanced, the salt exact. Every element sits in its proper place like soldiers in a drilled formation. And yet, as it slides over my tongue, something in me recoils. There is no warmth in it, no risk, no memory of empty bellies or burned fingers or stolen crusts shared in the dark. It tastes like gold, looks shiny, untouchable, distant. The rider waits for praise. I step to the nearest oven, open the door, and spit the mouthful into the flames. Gasps explode behind me. Henrik grabs my sleeve, fingers shaking. Talia, he whispers, for the love of the moon. This, I say, turning back to the armored men, is royal slop. The tallest rider stares at me, stunned. What did you say? I said. I repeat, because apparently I am determined to destroy my life today. Tell your Alpha King that his meat is dry food dressed in wine to hide it. His stew is dead, boiled until the soul left the pot. His cook has never known real hunger, so his food tastes like a lie. One of the children snickers, quickly muffled. Henrik makes a strangled sound that might be a prayer or a curse. The rider's face goes red, then strangely pale. You dare insult His Majesty? I shrug, though my knees have started to shake. If he wants to feed the poor, he should send flour, not scraps from a table that's forgotten how to feel. Silence falls heavy as flour dust. Then a voice speaks from the doorway. Repeat that. It is not loud, but it slices through the room like a blade. Every head turns. A man stands framed in the doorway, backlit by weak morning light. He wears travel-stained black armor, not the pristine ceremonial kind, and his dark hair is pulled back in warrior's braids. He is broad-shouldered, tall, a wall of steel and frost. His eyes cold, glacial blue lock onto mine, and do not move. I know that face. Every coin bears it. My mouth goes dry. Your Majesty, the rider stammers, dropping to one knee. The others follow. King Caleb of Dravorn steps into the bakery, gaze never leaving my flour-smeared cheeks, my stubborn chin. There is something like amusement, no, interest flickering under the ice of his expression. You, he says softly, have opinions about my food. The smart thing would be to drop my eyes, to fall to my knees, beg forgiveness, blame panic or ignorance or anything but the truth. Instead, my spine straightens. Yes, I hear myself say. His lips twitch, the ghost of a smile that never reaches his eyes. Interesting. He looks around the shabby bakery, the empty bins, the children clinging to each other. Then he nods to his riders. Chain her, he orders. She can insult my stew to my face in the throne room. Henrik lunges forward. Please, Your Majesty. She's only a girl, my employee, Caleb lifts one hand. Everyone goes still. By dawn, he says, gaze pinned to me. You will stand before my court. You will cook. If my people choose my table over yours, you and this bakery will be forfeit to the crown. He steps closer, close enough that I can see the faint scar along his jaw, the weary shadows beneath his eyes. But if they choose yours, he continues, voice dropping, then I will spare this place and decide what to do with the insolent little Omega who thinks she knows what hunger tastes like. Chains bite into my wrists as the riders obey. Fear slams into me, sharp and bitter. Still, as they drag me out into the cold, I lift my chin and meet the Alpha King's winter eyes. I hope you're hungry, Your Majesty, I say. For the first time, his smile touches his mouth. Oh, little baker, he murmurs. You have no idea. The royal kitchens smell like fear. Not mine, not yet. Theirs. Cooks in crimson livery freeze when the guards march me in, chains clinking softly with each step. Copper pots hang from the rafters, polished bright as coins. Knives gleam on ordered racks. Everything is sharp and spotless and terrified of being out of place. "This is her?" A man snaps. He is tall and thin as a spit, his chef's coat embroidered with golden crowns. His nose wrinkles when he looks at my flower-stained dress, my calloused hands, the shackles on my wrists. "Talia of the Outer Ring," one guard confirms. "The king's orders. She cooks. You present." The royal chef turns scarlet. "His Majesty wants this gutter girl in my kitchen?" I bite back a retort. The iron on my wrists is reminder enough that my mouth has already done enough damage for one lifetime. Another voice cuts through the tension, smooth as dark wine. "Not in your kitchen, Master Corin," King Caleb says from the doorway. "In mine." The room bows like a field in wind. I turn. He's shed the travel dust, but not the armor, black plates catching the firelight. His hair is braided back from his face, loose strands curling against his jaw. Those winter blue eyes sweep the room and pin me in place. "Unlock her," he commands. The guard hesitates just long enough for Caleb's gaze to slice his way. The chains fall from my wrists. "Thank you, Your Majesty," I say, rubbing the red marks. My voice comes out steadier than I feel. "Don't thank me yet, little baker," he murmurs. "You haven't won." He strides to a long central table laid out like a battlefield. On one side, gleaming cuts of meat, jars of spices, baskets of vegetables, sacks of flour finer than anything I've ever touched. On the other, covered dishes already prepared Corin's work, I assume. Caleb rests his gauntleted hand on the table. "You all heard my decree," he says to the watching staff. "Today, we test truth with fire. Master Corin will serve his finest dishes. Talia will cook whatever her insolent tongue believes fit for a king. The court will taste both and choose." Murmurs ripple through the room. Corin draws himself up. "Your Majesty, with respect, her food will not be fit to lick from your boots. She has no training." Caleb's brow lifts. "You doubt your skill, Master? Then this should be easy." The chef goes white. Of course not, sire." Caleb turns to me. "You claim my food is dead, bring it to life." I swallow. The children's faces flash in my mind. The ovens, the thin loaves, Henrik's shaking hands. "Yes, Your Majesty," I say. "But if I'm to cook like I do at home, I need more than swan and wine." Caleb's mouth curves, just a fraction. "Name it." "Bones," I say. "Scraps, onion skins, the heels of bread your nobles won't eat, the parts you throw away." The staff looks scandalized. Caleb looks intrigued. "Give her what she asks," he orders, "and give her a station. She works alone, no help, no interference. If anyone accidentally ruins her dish, they'll be explaining themselves to me personally." That clears the room around me fast. I roll my shoulders, flex my free hands, and walk to the far end of the table. The station is smaller, less polished, clearly the one no one favors. Good. I spread my fingers over the scarred wood and breathe. This, at least, I know. They bring what I asked for. Chicken carcasses, wilted vegetables, bones with just a whisper of meat clinging to them. To the royal chef, these are waste. To me, they are promise. The fires roar to life under iron cauldrons. Corin and his assistants work like a drilled army meat seared to precise color. Sauces reduced to perfect gloss, plates wiped spotless. Their movements are beautiful, efficient, soulless. I break bones with the heel of my hand, drop them into a pot with onions, garlic, carrot tops, bay leaves. The scent of roasting marrow and caramelized bits of onion curls upward, rich and dark. I add water, salt, thyme, the most important ingredient of all. Corin sniffs in disdain. "Peasant broth," he mutters to a sous chef. "The court will spit it back in her face." I ignore him. While the stock simmers, I work dough rough, hearty loaves with a crackling crust and a soft, chewy middle. I don't have time for a full rise, but hunger taught me tricks. I warm the bowl near the fire, coaxing the yeast alive with honey. My hands remember every stretch, every fold. Around us, the kitchen becomes a storm. Trays clatter, knives dance, orders are shouted and answered. But at my station, there is only breath and movement. Stir, taste, adjust. A pinch more salt, a splash of vinegar to wake the broth. A handful of chopped herbs at the end, not for decoration, but for brightness. When the bell tolls from the great hall, signaling the court's gathering, my heart stutters. "It's time," Caleb says. Plates are arranged. On Corin's side, jewel-like towers of meat and pastry, glistening with glaze, arranged in patterns almost too pretty to disturb. On mine, deep bowls of steaming stew thick with root vegetables and shredded chicken flanked by torn hunks of bread still warm enough to burn fingers. Caleb surveys the offerings, expression unreadable. "Bring them," he orders. The great hall is a sea of stone and silk, banners rippling from the rafters. Nobles line the long tables, their jewels catching firelight. At the far end, the king's throne looms on its dais. Whispers rise when they see me, the Omega in plain wool and red wrists walking beside the royal chef. They're really going to let her cook for him. Outer ring scum. It's an insult. Maybe he'll have her flogged after. I keep my eyes on the floor until I reach the center of the hall. Then I look up. Caleb is already watching me from the throne. He sits with the lazy, coiled stillness of a predator at rest, one hand upon the armrest, the other tapping once against his knee. His armor shines like midnight, a black star at the head of the room. "Master Corin," he calls, "present your dishes." The chef steps forward, voice loud, rehearsed. "For His Majesty and the honored court, pheasant in wine reduction with jeweled barley, swan in saffron cream, and a pear tart with almond custard." Servants sweep forward, laying his creations before the first table. Oohs and ahs follow. Then Caleb's gaze shifts to me. "Talia." I clear my throat. My voice tries to tangle, but I force it smooth. "For His Majesty," I say, "and the court who fights his wars. Bone broth stew with root vegetables and torn bread. The kind you eat when winter is long and coin is short. The kind that keeps a man on his feet." A few nobles snort. Someone laughs outright. "Very well," Caleb says. "We taste." He gestures, and bowls and plates travel down the rows like offerings at an altar. I watch as silk-sleeved lords lift spoons with reluctance, more for the show than from hunger. The first sip changes their faces. The pheasant is perfect. They nod, murmur polite praise. But when they taste my stew, something else happens. Their shoulders drop. Their eyes drift shut. One old lord exhales, like a man who's been holding his breath for years. "This reminds me of my mother's kitchen," he murmurs, startled. "Before the war." Another noblewoman takes a bite of bread, dips it into the broth, and laughs real, unguarded. "I haven't eaten like this since we were snowed in at my grandfather's keep." Around the hall, spoons clink faster. Bowls are emptied, then tilted to catch every last drop. Up on the dais, Caleb eats in silence. He tries Corin's swan first. His jaw works, eyes distant. Then he sets the fork down and reaches for the bowl set aside for him. He lifts the spoon. Steam curls over his face, carrying rosemary, garlic, the deep comfort of bones boiled down to their last offering. He tastes. For a heartbeat, his careful mask slips. His lashes lower. His throat works. The hand not holding the spoon clenches on the armrest, leather groaning softly. He looks, suddenly, not like a king on a throne, but like a boy in front of a cottage hearth, somewhere I have never seen. When he opens his eyes, the mask is back, but I have seen the crack. "Well?" he asks the hall, voice deceptively light. "My table or hers?" The answer rolls over me like a wave. "Hers," someone calls. "Bone broth. The baker's stew." Laughter, honest and warm, bursts around the room. People lift their bowls toward me in salute. Corin goes white as flour. Caleb lets the noise build, then raises one hand. Silence falls instantly. "The court has chosen," he says. "Master Corin, you have served faithfully, but your palate has drifted. You will retire with a generous pension." Corin staggers as if struck. As for Talia of the outer ring, Caleb's gaze finds me again, sharp and intent. "The bargain stands. The bakery will not be seized. In fact, it will be claimed under my protection as royal hearth. Bread from those ovens will feed my soldiers and my poor alike." My knees nearly give out. The children, the ovens, safe. "And you," he adds, voice dropping, "will come to the castle as my personal chef." A murmur ripples through the hall, shock, outrage, curiosity. My mouth opens. "Your Majesty, I—" "Careful, little baker," he cuts in softly. "Your tongue has already rewritten your fate once today." Later, in the shadowed quiet of the side corridor, when the court has dispersed and the clamor has faded, he corners me between cold stone and his warm armor. "You look like you might faint," he says. His eyes are clearer here, less king and more man. Did you truly not expect to win? I expected to hang, I admit. Winning wasn't part of the plan. He steps closer. The scent of steel and stew clings to him, oddly comforting. One gloved finger lifts a smear of flour from my cheek. You woke my court with scraps, he murmurs, and you woke something in me I thought long dead. His gaze drops to my mouth, then back to my eyes with a slow, dangerous smile. I'll eat the food and the chef, if she keeps looking at me like that. Heat floods my face so fast I sway. I wasn't looking at you, I stammer, which is a lie, and we both know it. His smirk deepens, but his voice softens, a thread of sincerity beneath the teasing. Get used to it, Talia. From now on, when I am hungry, I will think of you. My heart thunders. I don't know if he means my cooking or something far more dangerous. Either way, I already understand one terrible, thrilling truth. I have just fed a starving king, and he is not done eating. The castle is too clean. Not the kitchens, those are always a glorious mess of steam and crumbs and chaos, but the rest of it. The hallways gleam. The tapestries hang just so. The nobles glide through the corridors like swans, every jewel and curl perfectly arranged, every glance perfectly sharp. They see me, of course. They see the plain wool dress, patched at the hem. They see the omega mark on my throat. The flower that never quite leaves my fingers. Their lips curve, their eyes slide past as if I'm a smudge on polished silver. Kitchen girl, one lady murmurs as I pass with a basket of herbs. The king must be truly desperate if he's importing staff from the gutters. Imported? Her companion sniffs. He dragged her here in chains. Very different thing. They laugh, delicate and cruel. I keep walking. I've learned quickly that in the castle, silence is the better rebellion. Let them think I don't hear. Let them think I don't understand their words. I save my voice for the ovens, for the children who now receive yesterday's bread at the palace gates from the king's hearth, a phrase that still feels like a miracle on my tongue. Inside the kitchens, at least. I am not invisible. More salt, Talia? One scullery boy asks, holding up a handful like it might explode. Less bravado, more pinching, I say, guiding his fingers. Salt is like gossip. A little wakes things up. Too much and you ruin the whole day. They snicker, pots bubble, knives sing. For hours at a time, I forget there's a throne above us at all, until he appears. It starts on the third night. I am alone by then, the day staff gone, the world narrowed to my own breathing and the soft crackle of banked coals. I'm testing a new stew lamb this time, with barley and bitter greens, when the door to the corridor creaks. I don't look up. We're closed, I call. Come back at dawn. I wasn't aware my kitchens had hours. A familiar voice replies. My spoon slips. Caleb steps into the circle of firelight, shadows clinging to his armor like a second cloak. His hair is looser than I've seen it in court, the braids disturbed, a few dark strands falling across his brow. He looks less like a king carved from marble and more like a man who hasn't slept enough. Your Majesty, I say, trying not to sound as breathless as I suddenly feel. To what do we owe the honor? He raises one brow. You insult my food in public, defeat my chef, move into my kitchens, and now you question my presence in them? When you say it like that, I sound ungrateful, I mutter. His mouth curves. Inspection, he says. I wish to see what keeps my staff awake at this hour. Stew, I answer. And stubbornness. I gesture toward the counter. If you're inspecting, you can start by chopping those onions. His head tilts. You're ordering your king to prep vegetables? I'm asking the man who said he hadn't tasted anything alive in years to help me keep it that way. Something flickers in his eyes at that pain, quickly hidden. But he crosses the room and shrugs out of his gauntlets, setting them aside with a heavy clank. Show me, he says. I hand him a knife and an onion. The knife looks small in his hand. The onion looks doomed. Like this, I say, slicing my own with quick, sure strokes. Root off, skin off, then lines, then crosswise. Fingers tucked in unless you want fewer of them. He tries to mimic my movements. The first attempt is generous. That's less chopping and more murder, I observe. I'm better with larger targets, he replies dryly. I step behind him before I can talk myself out of it, reaching around to adjust his grip. His body goes still. All that alpha heat suddenly inches from mine. My hands are tiny against his, flower pale contrasted with scarred knuckles. Relax your fingers, I murmur. Let the knife do the work. You don't have to fight everything, Your Majesty. His breath hitches, just a little. Everything fights me first. I guide his hand through the motion. The knife slices cleanly. Onion scent rises, sharp enough to sting my eyes. Or maybe that's something else. When I pull back, a dusting of flour smears onto the dark leather at his shoulder where I accidentally brushed him. I reach to wipe it away, then think better of it. It looks like a fingerprint on night. He notices, of course. You've marked me, he says, glancing down. Evidence, I answer. That you were here working like the rest of us. His smile, real and sudden, hits me with more force than any sneer in the corridors. It makes him look younger, less terrible, almost beautiful. We work in companionable near silence after that. I stir the pot. He massacres onions until he starts to find a rhythm that doesn't endanger his fingers. At some point, his voice breaks the quiet. I meant what I said, he murmurs. About not tasting anything that made me feel. I glance at him. His posture is casual, but his jaw is tight, eyes fixed on the board. Court food is perfect, he continues, balanced, predictable. It fills the body and leaves the rest empty, like treaties signed with men who smile as they plan your death. I say nothing. The stew bubbles between us, thick with lamb and barley, releasing the kind of smell that makes memories sneak up on you. The first time I tasted your broth, he says, I remembered snow on my boots and my mother cursing at the stove because the chimney smoked. I remembered burning my tongue because I was too impatient to wait. He swallows. His hand tightens on the knife. I had not thought of those nights in years, he finishes quietly. Your food did that. Not my chef's. My chest goes tight. I just boiled bones and scraps, I say. Anyone could do it. Anyone didn't, he replies. The next day, I hear about Lady Alara. She's perfect, the laundress sighs as we scrub linens in steaming tubs behind the kitchen. Born to one of the oldest houses, an Omega with the right sort of blood, the council says she'll make a proper queen. Proper. Which means not me. She's coming tonight, another girl whispers. To dine with him privately. Something unpleasant curls in my stomach. I tell myself it's just stew indigestion. I don't have to imagine her for long. She walks into my kitchen like she owns it before the sun has fully set. Her gown a cascade of blue silk, her hair an intricate sculpture of braids and jewels. Her Omega scent is soft and expensive, all rosewater and honey. You must be Talia, she says, smiling too widely. The king's project. I wipe my hands on my apron. I'm the king's chef. Her brows lift, just slightly. Of course. It's so inspiring how His Majesty finds value in the most unexpected places. The words are sugar. The tone is poison. What can I do for you, my lady? I ask. She drifts closer to the simmering pot, wrinkles her delicate nose. Is this what he's been raving about in council? Peasant stew? She laughs lightly. He has such whimsical tastes these days. Heat creeps up my neck, but I keep my voice even. He asked for something that reminded him of simpler times. Ah. She reaches out, tracing the rim of a bowl with one manicured nail. Well, men in power often indulge their nostalgia before they settle. It's charming, in a way. I meet her eyes. Settle? With someone. Suitable. Her gaze sweeps me head to toe. You understand. We all have our roles. Yours is to feed him until he remembers who he is supposed to be. My hand tightens on the ladle. You're very confident about what he's supposed to be, I say softly. I was raised for it, she answers. Were you? No. I was raised on crusts and cold, and the knowledge that Omegas like me are lucky to belong anywhere at all. Enjoy your evening, Lady Alara, I say. I hope the food is suitable. Her smile sharpens, but she says nothing more as she glides away. The kitchens feel colder after she's gone, despite the fire. I throw myself into work, chopping, stirring, tasting until the flavors blur. When the servants come for the trays destined for the king's private table, my stomach twists. Did he ask for me to serve them? He did not. By the time the castle quiets, I've convinced myself it doesn't matter. I'm just a cook. He's a king. Whatever happens at his table is none of my concern. I stay to clean anyway. It's stupid how my heart leaps when the door opens again near midnight and Caleb walks in, alone, the collar of his shirt loosened, the top of his armor unbuckled. Inspection again? I ask. pretending not to see the faint smudge of lipstick at his jaw. His fingers brush it away as if he's only just noticed. "She talks too much," he says instead of answering, "and eats too little." I left her with half a pear tart untouched. "She said you were supposed to settle," I say before I can stop myself. Something dark crosses his face. "Did she?" I turn back to the sink, cursing my loose tongue. Forget I mentioned it. He doesn't. He crosses the room, stops so close behind me that his reflection appears over my shoulder in the copper basin. Our eyes meet in the rippling water. "What else did she say?" he asks quietly. "That I'm a passing amusement, I admit. That I feed you until you remember who you're supposed to be." His jaw tightens. "And who is that?" "Not my place to say, Your Majesty." He reaches past me to take the pot from my hands, setting it aside with more care than necessary. "Look at me, Talia." I do. For once, there is no court, no council, no audience. Just a man with tired eyes and flour still ghosting his armor from nights before. Standing too close to the girl who won't stop burning herself for other people. As if summoned by the thought, pain explodes along my hand. I've brushed it against a still hot iron pan. I hiss, jerking back. Damn it. Caleb catches my wrist before I can pull away, turning my hand palm up. Red skin blazes angry across the base of my thumb. "You should be more careful," he says, voice low and oddly rough. "How will you feed me if you break yourself?" Before I can retort, he brings my hand to his mouth. He blows gently across the burn, cool air soothing the sting, then presses his lips to the injured skin. The touch is impossibly soft for a man who commands armies. Heat shoots up my arm, turns my knees weak. "Caleb," I whisper, and instantly wish I hadn't used his name. His eyes flick up to mine, blue gone dark. His mouth lingers against my skin, a caress that should mean nothing and somehow means everything. For a heartbeat, the world narrows to this. His breath on my hand, my pulse in my throat, the charged quiet between us. He tilts my hand, kissing the edge of the burn again. His lips are warm, reverent, worshipful. I can feel myself leaning in, dragged by some invisible thread, my body betraying the good sense screaming in my head. At the last second, panic wins. I yank my hand back, as if I've been scorched anew, stumbling a step away. I should bandage it," I stammer. "If it blisters, I won't be able to knead properly tomorrow." Something like hurt flickers across his face, gone almost before I can notice. He straightens, the king snapping back into place over the man. "Of course," he says. His tone is carefully neutral. "Rest, Talia. We have a long day ahead. The kingdom expects miracles from its kitchens now." He turns to go, then pauses at the doorway. "For the record," he says without looking back, "I am very tired of being who everyone else says I am supposed to be." The door closes behind him. I press my burned hand to my chest, feeling my heart pound against the tender skin, and realize with a sick, dizzy certainty that Lady Ilara was wrong about at least one thing. I am not a passing amusement. I am a problem. For both of us. The rain comes in sideways that night, needling against the high windows and turning the courtyard torches into smears of gold. Most of the castle has sensibly gone to bed. The kitchens, as usual, have not. I should have gone hours ago. My burned hand throbs in a slow, sullen rhythm beneath the linen wrap, but the ache is familiar company. I roll dough across the flowered table, working out knots in my chest with each push and fold. "Your maids are going to revolt if you keep stealing their flour at midnight." His voice slides in from the doorway, quiet but impossible to ignore. I don't jump this time. I'm getting used to him appearing out of darkness like a particularly well-armed ghost. "Your Majesty," I say, without looking up. "Here for your inspection or your supper?" "Both," Caleb answers, stepping into the circle of lamplight. He's shed most of his armor tonight. Only the leather underlayer remains, dark and fitted to a body that was clearly not built for sitting on thrones. His hair is damp from the rain, loose braids clinging to his jaw. He looks less like a king and more like a man who took off his crown and forgot where he put it. "I thought kings dined in halls, not kitchens," I add, dusting more flour over the dough. "I thought Omegas were supposed to curtsy and simper, not insult their sovereign's food," he counters. Seems we're both disappointments. That earns me the small, real smile I've started hoarding in my memory, the ones he never shows in court. He leans a hip against the table, watching my hands. "You work like you're fighting something." "I am," I say. "The dough, the day, take your pick." His eyes flick to my bandaged hand. Does it still hurt? Only when I use it. So constantly then. I shrug. The silence that falls is not awkward this time. It's thick, humming, like the air before a storm. Tell me about them, he says at last. I glance up. About who? The ones you burned yourself for, he says softly. The orphans, the bakery. You speak about them like a woman guarding a fortress. A laugh escapes me, low and humorless. It was barely a fortress, more like a cracked bowl with too many holes and not enough soup. But it was yours, he says. I press my palms into the dough, feel it stretch and yield. Part of me wants to deflect, to offer a joke, a shrug, anything that keeps my insides from being seen. But his gaze is steady, and I remember the way his lips felt on my burned skin, the way his voice roughened when he spoke of feeling nothing. If he can strip down his armor in here, maybe I can take off a little of mine. I don't remember my parents, I say. The plague took most of the outer ring that winter. I was 5, maybe. Old enough to remember cold, not old enough to remember names. He goes very still. Henrik found me sleeping behind the ovens, I continue. Said if I could steal bread, I could learn to make it. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. By 10, I knew how to stretch one sack of flour into enough loaves to feed twice as many mouths as it should. I can almost feel the old bakery around me again, the soot, the cracked tiles, the warmth. The others came after, I say. Street kids, war orphans, runaways. We slept in corners, took turns with the one decent blanket. Henrik pretended it was bad business to send away anyone who'd scrub pans for a crust, but he was soft under the beard. I swallow. When the taxes rose, he stopped eating so we could. My hands tighten on the dough. Flour squeaks under my palms. I learned 2 things there, I finish quietly. Food is the only apology the world understands, and people like me only stay as long as we're useful. The confession hangs between us, raw and ugly. I hate how small my voice sounds. I hate that my eyes sting. Caleb doesn't rush to fill the silence. When he finally speaks, his voice is low. My father was not soft under the beard, he says. I look up sharply. He isn't looking at me now, but at some point, far beyond the stone walls. We lived on the southern ridge before the war, he says. A cottage, if you can believe it. Chickens. An herb garden. My mother played the lute badly and cooked stew that could make a whole village forget there'd been frost in the harvest. It is impossible to picture the Alpha King in a cottage. He must see that disbelief on my face because his mouth twitches. Yes, I did exist before armor and execution orders, he says. I was a scrawny boy with perpetually scraped knees. I used to sneak into the kitchen and steal carrot slices before they went into the pot. My mother would pretend not to see, then accidentally drop more. There's a softness in his tone I've never heard outside this room. A piece of him he has not shown anyone in a long time. She taught me to cook, he goes on. Said a man who can't feed himself becomes dangerous because he starts thinking the world owes him something. We chopped onions together until our eyes burned. We argued over how much salt to add. I burned the stew the first 3 times I tried. She ate all of it anyway. What happened? I ask, though I already know. The war. There's always a war. Father happened, he says simply. He came back from council one day with a crown in his hands and blood on his boots, and suddenly the cottage was a memory and the palace was a prison. He said I had to stop smelling like smoke and start smelling like power. His jaw works. She died the following winter, he says. Fevers. Doctor said it was an unlucky chill. I think it was this place. It ate her, same way it's been chewing through me ever since. My chest aches in a way that has nothing to do with my burned hand. I'm sorry, I whisper. He shakes his head. You gave me one honest thing. I owed you another. The dough has rested enough. I dust the table again and push it toward him. Then repay me properly, I say. Hands. He blinks. What? You said she taught you to cook. Prove you remember something other than onion murder. I nod at the dough. Need. His brows climb. You command your king often, Talia. Only when he pretends to be a man who can't get his hands dirty, I shoot back. He huffs out a breath that might almost be a laugh, and places his hands on the dough. His fingers spread, large and uncertain. Like this? He asks, pressing down. I grimace. Like you're strangling a rabbit. Yes, here. Before fear can talk me out of it, I step in close behind him, sliding my own hands over his. The contrast makes me swallow his skin hot and calloused, mine flower slick and small. Push with the heels of your palms, I murmur, guiding his motion. Fold it over. Turn. Again. You're not fighting it. You're coaxing it. He obeys, the movement awkward at first, then smoother as he finds the rhythm. His back is a wall of warmth against my front, his shoulders broad enough to block half the lamplight. This feels ridiculous, he mutters. This feels like bread. I correct. And if you keep doing it, it'll feel like home. His breath stirs the hair at my temple. You talk about home like it's a pot anyone can climb into if they simmer long enough. Sometimes, I say. Sometimes you build it with wood and stone. Sometimes you build it with people and recipes. Either way, you have to burn for it a little. The dough begins to change under our hands, stretching, smoothing, coming alive. So does something in the air. He falls silent, but his breathing changes, growing shallower, tighter. I become acutely aware of every point where we touch my chest, brushing his back, my fingers wrapped over his, our hips almost aligned with each push. Again, I say, but my voice has gone soft. His hands press forward. The dough yields. My body sways with the motion. I don't realize I've stopped guiding until his fingers still under mine. Talia, he says. My name sounds different in his mouth this time. Rougher, thicker. Yes, Your Majesty? I whisper, and hate how breathless I am. He releases the dough and turns in the same motion, trapping me between his body and the edge of the table. His palms land on either side of my hips, caging me in without touching me. His eyes have gone very dark. This is a mistake, he says. My pulse stutters. Teaching you to knead? Absolutely. You're a menace to dough. A ghost of a smile flickers, then fades. He leans in until I can taste his breath stew, and rain, and something uniquely him. I meant this, he murmurs. Here, with you. His gaze drops to my mouth. The room seems to shrink. The only sounds are the ticking of cooling metal and the drum of my heart. What's wrong with this? I ask, hating the tiny quiver in my voice. My council met today, he says. They reminded me that a king without an heir invites war. They have chosen a solution. Elara, I say, the name bitter on my tongue. Elara, he confirms. They want me to announce an engagement at the treaty feast next week, in front of half the nobility and all of our enemies. He exhales, slow and harsh. A pretty story for them to believe in. A safe queen, a proper Omega. He doesn't say, not you. He doesn't have to. The dough behind me cools against my back. My burned hand throbs. The part of me that learned long ago how easily people trade girls like me for safer options nods and starts to pull away. I move to step sideways. His hand shoots out on instinct, fingers wrapping around my waist, holding me there. Not rough, but desperate. Don't, he says. Don't what? I manage. Don't step away from me when I am telling you the worst parts, he answers, voice raw. Everyone else smiles at the crown and ignores the man underneath. You look straight through both and still let me eat at your table. I feed half the city now, I say, because admitting anything else would split me open. You're just the loudest of them. He huffs a breath that might have been a laugh if it weren't so wrecked. The torchlight catches on the small silver crest at his throat. For once, it looks like a shackle instead of a prize. I will go to that feast, he says slowly. I will sit at the head of a table filled with men who would sell this kingdom for a better wine. They will expect me to stand and promise myself to a woman who tastes like politics. He leans closer, until our foreheads almost touch. My throat tightens. But hear me very carefully, Talia, he whispers. They can have my crown. They can dictate my treaties. They can shove whatever bride they want into my bed for appearances. His hand tightens on my waist, thumb digging into my hip like it's the only solid thing in the room. They cannot decide whose food I crave. The words land between us like a thrown gauntlet. Heat rushes through me, head to toe. He's too close, not close enough. Caleb, I say, barely more than breath. His eyes flick to my lips again. My fingers curl into the front of his shirt without my permission, feeling the hard line of his chest beneath. For a fraction of a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. The rain, the ovens, the ghosts of his council, everything fades, leaving only this narrow sliver of space that could be closed with one reckless movement. His, or mine. He closes his eyes. Then, with visible effort, he steps back. The hand on my waist drops away. Air rushes between us like a tide returning to shore. If I start this now, he says hoarsely, I will not stop. Not for them, not for war, not for anything. My fingers clutch empty air. And your kingdom? I ask, angry with myself for how small I sound. He swallows. My kingdom needs a king who can walk into that feast and pretend his heart is untouched. A humorless smile twists his mouth. I am already failing them. I could tell him that kings are allowed to be men. That omegas like me are allowed to want things other than survival. Instead, I straighten, press my palms flat on the table to steady myself. Then we do what we're both good at, I say. You go upstairs and lie to men with crowns. I stay down here and tell the truth to boiling water. His gaze softens in a way that scares me more than his anger ever could. Is that what this is for you? He asks quietly. Just stew and scraps and tricks to stretch them? I think of his hands over mine, of his mouth on my burned skin, of how his voice changed when he remembered his mother's kitchen. No, I say before I can regret it. This is the first place I've felt chosen, without being purchased. Silence falls again. This time it's gentle. He nods once, as if I've just told him something sacred. Then I will go let them think they own me, he says. And when it's over, if the walls are still standing, I will come back here. To the only place in this castle that still smells like real life. He turns toward the door, then glances back over his shoulder. Keep the ovens lit, little baker. My heart stutters. Why? So I can find my way back, he says simply. When the door closes behind him, the room feels too big, the dough too small, my heart far too loud. I press my hands into the soft, risen mass, shaping it into loaves for a feast I am not invited to, and whisper to the empty kitchen what I cannot yet say to him. I will keep the fires burning, and if he keeps his promises, I might even let him taste more than my food. The treaty feast smells like triumph. Roasted meats, honeyed fruits, fresh bread from the royal hearth with my fingerprints pressed into every loaf. If peace had a scent, it would be this. The great hall blazes with torchlight, banners of rival houses hanging side by side, their colors bleeding together in the smoke. For one dangerous moment, I let myself believe we did it. Careful with that platter, I warn as a boy staggers past under a mountain of glazed pheasant. If you drop it, I'm throwing you in the oven instead. He grins, nervous but proud. They all are. Tonight's menu is mine from top to bottom. Every dish bears the little twist Caleb has come to crave, bone-deep flavor instead of hollow prettiness. My mark. Baker. The word slithers over my shoulder like a cold draft. I turn. Lady Elora stands just inside the kitchen threshold, cloaked in pale green silk that makes her eyes look softer than they are. Her hair gleams under the torchlight. A crown all on its own. She shouldn't be back here with the smoke and the scullions, but then, rules are for people like me. Busy night? She asks. Very, I answer. The king likes his guests breathing, so I'd appreciate not being distracted. Her smile widens, sweet as poisoned honey. Always so sharp. You know, Talia, I almost envy you. I blink. That would be a first. You get to see him like this, she says, drifting closer to the nearest tray. Unarmored. Hungry. Men are easiest to read when they want something. And what do you read? I ask. She brushes a finger along the rim of a silver dish, then licks the tip, dainty and precise. That he's playing, she says, as all kings do before they settle. My grip tightens on the ladle. If you came here to insult me, you'll have to take a number. I'm working. Relax. Her gaze flicks past me to where a young scullion waits, shifting from foot to foot beside a covered bowl. I brought a gift, actually. A rare spice from the Southern Isles. They say a pinch turns any dish unforgettable. She holds up a tiny glass vial, the contents dark as dried blood. I don't use unfamiliar ingredients on treaty nights, I say. Oh, I'm sure you don't. Her lashes lower. But your staff might. Eager to please. Easy to persuade. The hairs on the back of my neck rise. What did you do? She laughs, light and cruel. Nothing you can prove, little baker. Before I can move, she's already gliding away, skirts whispering over the flagstones, vanishing into the corridor leading toward the hall. I whirl on the scullion. He's maybe 14, cheeks still soft with youth, eyes gone wide and guilty. What did she give you? I demand. Nothing, he stammers. Just, said His Majesty wanted the Lord from Renfall to taste something special, said to sprinkle this in the sauce. His hands shake as he reveals the empty vial. My heart drops into my stomach. Which dish? I choke out. He points with a trembling finger to one of the covered bowls on the service table, already surrounded by others, identical. Panic claws at my throat. There's no time to test them all. No time to drag the carts back from the hall. The bell tolls from above 3 chimes. The signal to serve. Listen to me, I say, grabbing the boy's shoulders. You will not touch that table again tonight. Stay here. If anyone asks, you're scrubbing pots. Do you understand? He nods frantically. And if anyone gets sick, I add, you tell them exactly who handed you that vial. Fear flickers in his eyes. Will they believe me? I don't answer. The procession begins. Platters leave the kitchen in a shining river, carried by servants whose steps are measured and careful. My heart hammers with every dish that vanishes through the doors. Please, I think, to gods I haven't bothered in years. Let me be wrong. Let this be another of Alara's mind games. The first scream comes half an hour later. It rips through the hall, raw and ugly, cutting through music and laughter like a cleaver. I freeze, ladle hovering over a pot. Talia, someone shouts. They're calling for you. I wipe my hands on my apron and run. The great hall has changed. Moments ago it was all noise and color. Now the sound has curdled into chaos. On the floor near the Renfall banner, a lord lies on his side, body rigid, froth bubbling at the corner of his mouth. His skin has gone a terrifying shade of gray. His wife kneels beside him, shrieking, clutching his hand like she can drag him back by force. Servants hover helplessly with napkins and water, as if either could fix this. Caleb stands at the head of the table, rigid as a statue carved from storm clouds. His eyes, when they lock onto mine, are wildfire blue. Get her, someone snarls. The cook. This is her doing. It takes me a second to realize her is me. Hands grab my arms, spinning me in place. A guard's grip clamps down tight enough to bruise. Stop, Caleb roars. The word cracks across the hall. The guard hesitates, but doesn't let go. My gaze darts to the fallen lord. To the bowl overturned on the rushes beside him, its contents smeared across the floor. Bits of meat and pale sauce, laced with something darker. My stomach turns. I didn't make that, I whisper. Not like that. Every dish tonight came from your kitchen, one counselor says coldly. Lord Marrow, sharp-nosed and always eager for blood. He steps forward, jabbing a finger at my apron. Your mark was on them all. If poison was there, so were you. I tasted everything, I protest, fighting to keep my voice steady. It was clean when it left my hands. Then whose hands dirtied it? Marrow demands. My eyes find Alara. She stands a little apart from the chaos, one elegant hand covering her mouth in a perfect mask of distress. Her gaze meets mine for a sliver of a second. There is triumph there, sharp and glittering, before she looks back to the dying man. I see the truth. I know it like I know the weight of my own knife. But truth without proof is just another story. And tonight they've already chosen the villain. Search the kitchen, another lord barks. If she's so innocent, the poison will be somewhere else, won't it? Guards surge toward the doors. The hall seethes, nobles rising from their seats, their whispers turning into accusations. King's whore. Peasant trash. Sabotage. If Renfall's lord dies, this treaty dies with him. The last lands like an axe. Caleb's gaze sweeps the room, taking in the fear, the fury, the way hands drift toward sword hilts despite the festive banners, the delicate balance he's been straining to hold shutters. Talia, he says. My name on his lips in front of this, many people feels like another noose. Did you poison my guest? He asks. Silence falls hard enough to hurt. Every instinct in me wants to rage. To spit Alara's name into the air, to demand he believe the woman who's been feeding his soul instead of the one chosen to decorate his arm. But I force myself to stand straight, to meet his eyes with every scrap of dignity I have left. No, I say. I would never. His jaw flexes. His eyes search my face like he's trying to read the spaces between my words. Then he nods once, to the guards. Confine her to her quarters, he orders. No one in or out without my leave. The council will investigate. The room explodes. Your Majesty, that's not enough. She should be chained. I demand justice for Renfall. Caleb slams his hand down on the table. Goblets jump, wine spilling like blood. I said. he growls, voice carrying over every other sound. Confine her. Until I have proof, she is accused, not condemned. Anyone who lays a finger on her without my order will answer directly to me. The guards drag me backward. My heart has already fallen through the floor. He didn't say innocent. He didn't say, I believe her. He said, until I have proof. Proof might never come. As I'm hauled toward the doors, my gaze snags on his one last time. Fury burns there at the collapse of his carefully built feast, at the threat to his fragile peace. Something else smolders beneath it, hotter and more dangerous. He doesn't look away. Neither do I. Then the hall vanishes behind stone and slammed doors. They lock me in my small chamber next to the kitchens, the room that only hours ago had felt like a sanctuary. Now the walls are too close, the air too thick. I pace until my legs shake. I replay every step of the day, the chopping, the stirring, the tasting, looking for mistakes I didn't make. When the door finally opens again, he fills the frame. Caleb dismisses the guard with a jerk of his head. The door shuts, leaving us alone in a silence that hums like a plucked string. He looks terrible. Not in any way the nobles would notice. His armor is polished, his hair tamed, his cloak thrown over one shoulder just so. But his eyes look like the surface of a frozen lake with something thrashing beneath. You should have defended me, I say, before he can speak. No curtsy, no title, just the truth, sharp and shaking. He exhales slowly. I kept them from hanging you on the spot. Congratulations, I snap. I'm not dangling from the rafters, I'm only caged. He flinches. I drag a hand through my hair, pacing away from him and back. You know it wasn't me, I say. You've eaten my food every day for weeks. Have I ever given you reason to think I'd use it to kill for sport? No, he says immediately. Never. Then say it, I demand, spinning to face him. Out loud, in there, in front of them. Why was it so easy to let them believe I might? His gaze darkens. Because belief doesn't matter to men who want a reason to draw steel, he snaps. Because one more wrong word from me and Renfall's banners would have walked out of this castle and straight into an enemy's camp. Because this kingdom hangs by a thread woven from ego and fear, and tonight someone tried to cut it. Someone, I repeat. She has a name. His jaw tightens. Do you have proof? I think of the empty vial, the trembling boy, Alara's glittering eyes. None of it would survive the council chamber. No, I say. Then right now to them it is your word against hers, he says. A king's favored kitchen omega against a lady of old blood. Which side do you think they would choose to believe if I forced them? The answer tastes like ash. You still could have tried, I whisper. He moves then, fast enough to make my breath hitch, closing the distance between us. His hands come up, not to grab my arms but to frame my face, thumbs brushing the dampness I hadn't realized had gathered beneath my eyes. I am trying, he says, his voice suddenly low and raw. I am trying to keep you alive in a castle full of vultures. I am trying to untangle who did this without setting the whole hall on fire. His forehead touches mine, just barely. The contact steals the breath from my lungs. I believe you, Talia, he whispers. I believe you didn't poison that man. I swear it on the grave of the mother whose stew you made me remember. My eyes squeeze shut. The words hit something tender and exposed inside me. Then why do I still feel like you chose them over me? I ask, and the crack in my voice betrays more than I want him to hear. His fingers curl against my cheeks. Because I chose the kingdom over both of us, he says. For tonight. Because if this treaty shatters, it won't be just your life on the line, or mine. It'll be those orphans you burned yourself for, the farmers who eat your bread, the soldiers who rely on this brittle peace to see another winter. Hot tears slip free, traitorous and burning. He wipes one away with his thumb like he has the right. I can't be only your king, he murmurs. I have to be theirs too. Sometimes that means standing still when I want to cut a path to you with a sword. His breath brushes my mouth. It would be so easy to close that tiny distance, to let his apology sink into my skin and pretend it's enough. But I can still feel the weight of the hall's eyes, the echo of his orders. Confine her. I pull back, forcing his hands to drop. Then go be their king, I say, scrubbing at my face with my own sleeve. Go reassure the lords and comfort Lady Alara and sign whatever papers they put in front of you. Talia, and when you're done, I continue, voice shaking, Come back and tell me if there's anything left of you that belongs to yourself, much less to me." He looks like I slapped him. Good, maybe I did. Silence yawns between us. At last, he straightens, the distance between us filling with all the things neither of us is ready to say. The king's mask slides back into place, smooth and cold. "I will find out who did this," he says. "And when I do, there will be nowhere in this kingdom safe for them." I nod, because anything more will break me open completely. He hesitates at the door, hand resting on the latch. "For what it's worth," he says quietly, not looking back. "I have never tasted anything as empty as that hall felt when they dragged you out of it." Then he's gone. The lock clicks. The echo of it sinks into my bones. I slide down the wall until I'm curled on the cold stone floor, apron bunched in my fists, and finally let myself do what I've been holding back since the moment the Lord hit the ground. I break. They come for me at dawn. Not with chains this time, just a folded parchment and a guard who won't quite meet my eyes. The sky beyond my little window is the color of old milk, the castle still half asleep, but the words on the page are wide awake. By order of the council, pending further inquiry into the events of the treaty feast, Talia of the Outer Ring is to be released from royal service and escorted from the castle grounds. No charges, no apology, just absence. "Is this from the king?" I ask. The guard swallows. "It bears his seal." That hurts more than shackles ever did. They let me pack one small bundle, a change of clothes, a worn recipe book with notes crammed into every margin, a wooden spoon that has survived more fires than I have, my hands, my skills, everything else I've been living with: warm kitchens, roaring ovens, the sound of his voice in the doorway stays. At the gate, I look back once. From here, the castle doesn't look like a prison or a palace. It looks like a stone beast crouched over the city, all teeth and banners and secrets. Somewhere inside, Caleb is probably already in council, his armor polished, his face a mask. I wait for anger to come, hot and clean. It doesn't. Only a dull, heavy ache. "Go on," the guard says quietly, "before they change their minds and decide to keep you for a trial instead." So I go. The road to the outer ring feels longer than it did the first time I was dragged along it in chains. Then, I had rage to buoy me. Now, every step feels like walking away from a fire I didn't want to leave. The bakery appears at the end of the lane like a memory someone forgot to erase. The sign still hangs crooked. The shutters still sag. Smoke does not curl from the chimney. No one has lit the oven since I left. Inside, dust lies over everything in a fine gray layer, softening the edges. The long table where the children rolled dough is empty. The corner where we piled blankets for sleeping is bare. I set my bundle down and stand in the silence, listening for echoes that don't come. "Fool," I whisper to myself. "You knew better. I knew better than to trust a king whose world is built on compromise and blood. Better than to let an alpha's hands feel like safety. Better than to think my little miracles of broth and bread could matter more than treaties." I roll up my sleeves anyway. The ovens groan when I open them, complaining about being woken from their long sleep. I scrub them out with ash and water until soot streaks my arms. I sweep the floor, beat the dust from the curtains, coax the place back from ghosthood. By noon, I have dough rising under damp cloths. By afternoon, the first loaves are in, the air filling with the smell that used to be my whole world. I tell myself that's all I need. This, flour, fire, my two empty hands. I am a liar, and not even good at it. As the sun sinks, the ache in my chest expands until it's pressing against my ribs. Every creak of the door makes me look up. Every time, it's no one. When night falls, I sit on the counter, legs swinging like a child, and stare at the one loaf I made just for myself. I don't eat it. Somewhere out there, the castle glows against the dark, a smear of gold on the hill. Somewhere inside it, he is raising a cup to his council, thanking them for saving his precious treaties by cutting me loose. "Congratulations, Your Majesty," I murmur to the empty bakery. "You finally remembered who you're supposed to be." The wind rattles the door in answer. I don't know that, back in the castle, everything I've told myself is already starting to unravel. Later, the story will be told a dozen different ways. Some will swear the king shattered a goblet against the council table when he heard of my dismissal, red wine dripping down the carved legs like spilled blood. Others will whisper that he just went very, very quiet in a way that made even the bravest lords glance toward the exits. What really happens is this. Caleb listens. He listens as Lord Marrow presents the convenient conclusion the council has decided upon. No formal charges, no public blame, just the quiet removal of a troublesome Omega whose presence has become divisive. He listens as Ilara, demure in dove gray, suggests that lingering upset over the feast could be soothed by a hopeful announcement. An engagement, perhaps, something to show the kingdom their king is focused on stability, not scandal. He listens while a messenger, pale and sweating, stammers through a report from the kitchens. The scullion boy has been found, half dragged toward the barracks by guilt and fear. How he mentions a lady in green, a vial of dark powder, a whispered instruction to make the king's new favorite unforgettable. He listens when the boy holds out shaking hands, stained with something that isn't flour, and when the castle apothecary pales over his samples and whispers the name of a poison, rare enough that only someone with money and connections could have acquired it. He listens to all of it. And then, for the first time since he put on the crown, Caleb ignores every single piece of advice his council offers. Bury this, Marrow urges, face ashen. If Renfall's court hears that the king's own almost queen poisoned their lord under his roof, they'll cry for war. Let the Omega take the fall quietly, another insists. She's already gone. No need to stir the ashes. Think of the optics, someone else pleads. The kingdom needs to see you strong, not apologizing over a kitchen girl. Ilara says nothing at all. She doesn't have to. Her silence is as smooth as her lie. Caleb looks at the boy. At the apothecary's vial. At his own hands braced on the table, scarred and calloused and shaking with the effort of not wrapping themselves around someone's throat. Then he says, very softly, no. The council does not understand at first. They think he means no to war, no to panic, no to anything that might crack the polished surface they have worked so hard to maintain. It is only when he stands, cloak flaring, and orders the bells rung that they realize. He means no to them. The Great Hall is not prepared for another gathering so soon after the disastrous feast, but kings do not always wait on preparations. When Caleb storms through the doors, trailing rain and fury, lords and ladies scramble to their feet, summoned from their chambers by the insistent tolling. I am already there. I don't understand the summons when the guards knock on the bakery door, only that they are Caleb's colors and their faces are white as flour. I ride in the back of the wagon like a sack of grain, the city blurring by in smears of torchlight and confusion. By the time I'm hauled through the castle doors again, my heart is pounding so hard I feel it in my fingertips. Why am I here? I demand as they push me toward the hall. His Majesty insisted, one guard mutters, that you see this. The hall feels different tonight. No music, no laughter, just a low hum of voices and the metallic taste of unease. Caleb stands at the head of the room, not on his throne but in front of it, like a man blocking the doorway to his own home. He wears no crown, no ornate cloak, just black leather and a sword at his hip. Ilara is already in place at one side, flanked by her family. She looks flawless. Of course she does. The moment I step through the doors, his head turns. Our eyes meet across the distance. For a heartbeat, the world narrows to that line of sight. Talia, he says, his voice carrying easily. Come here. Every instinct screams at me to stay where I am, to turn and run back to my little bakery and bolt the door. Instead, my feet obey him like they've been doing it for years. I walk the length of the hall, feeling hundreds of eyes on me. The whispers rise, sharp and confused. Didn't they send her away? Is she to be punished after all? Ilara won't like this. No, I suspect she will not. When I reach the dais, I stop at the bottom of the steps. This is a bad idea, I hiss up at him under my breath. His mouth curves, but there's no humor in it. So was letting you insult my food. I seem to have a weakness. For suffering? I shoot back. For truth, he corrects quietly. Then louder. Lords, ladies, you all remember the unfortunate events of our last gathering. A mutter runs through the hall. Since then, Caleb continues, I have hunted for answers. Tonight, I have them. Marrow steps forward, alarm flaring on his face. Your Majesty, perhaps these matters are better handled in private, Caleb suggests. Behind closed doors where the truth can be shaped until it fits whatever lies are most convenient. Marrow shuts his mouth. Caleb gestures. The scullion boy is pushed forward, pale and shaking but standing. In his hands, He clutches the empty vial like a relic. "Hear him," Caleb says. The boy stammers through his story. The lady in green, the soft promise of favor, the instruction to sprinkle the powder only into one specific dish to give our honored guest a memory he'll never forget. His own growing terror as the Lord from Renfall collapsed. "I tried to say something," he chokes. "But everyone was shouting and they took the cook away and I..." Caleb rests a hand on the boy's shoulder, steadying. "You did well," he says. "You came forward. That is more than some in this hall can say." His gaze slides to Alara. She does not flinch. "Your Majesty," she says, voice smooth, "are we truly taking the word of a frightened kitchen boy over that of a noble house?" "No," he says. "We are taking his word and the apothecary's." He lifts another small vial between two fingers, this one half full and labeled. The apothecary steps out, bowing, and explains in trembling detail the poison he found lingering in the dregs of the Renfall bowl, its rarity, the way it matches the residue in the boy's empty glass. Alara's color drains, then floods back, too bright. "This proves nothing," she says. "Anyone could have given him that, even..." Her eyes flick to me, vicious. "Even her, a desperate Omega, jealous of her betters." "Enough," Caleb snaps. The word cracks like thunder. The hall shrinks around it. He descends the steps, closing the distance between himself and Alara until he stands only a few paces away. "When I was a boy," he says, voice carrying easily, "my mother told me a story about poison. She said it reveals itself in 3 ways. The color of the victim's lips, the pattern of the vomit, and the way guilty tongues trip over their own lies." A ripple of uneasy laughter passes through the hall. He does not smile. "I might have missed the first 2, he continues, "but I have had an excellent education in the 3rd. Alara's chin lifts. "You dare insult me on the word of..." "I dare expose you," he cuts in, "on the evidence I have, the confession of a boy you tried to use, and the fact that while an innocent woman wept in a locked room, you came to my bed with the same hands that held this." He holds up the vial. Silence slams down. Color floods Alara's face now for a very different reason. "You would ruin me," she whispers. "Over a cook." "No," he says. "You ruined yourself. Over a crown." He steps back, turning to face the hall. "Lady Alara of House Vire," he says formally, voice ringing off stone, "is hereby stripped of her status as candidate for queen and banished from my court. Any who shelter her without reporting it to the crown will share her fate." Gasps crash through the room like waves. Her family erupts into protests. The council sputters. Renfall's envoy, pale but alive, he recovered, watches with an expression that might, one day, become respect. Alara's gaze darts to me as guards move to take her arms. Hatred burns there, hot enough to blister. I lift my chin and meet it. "Enjoy your peasant," she spits at Caleb as they drag her away. "Let us all see how long your kingdom survives on scraps and sentiment." The doors close behind her like a final verdict. The hall buzzes with wild energy, every lord and lady calculating what this means for them, for alliances, for gossip. Caleb ignores them all. Slowly, deliberately, he turns back to me. "Talia," he says quietly, "come up here." My legs feel like they're made of undercooked dough, but I climb. When I reach the top, the hall seems impossibly far below. Hundreds of faces tilt up, waiting to see what their king will do next. I can feel the weight of their expectations pressing against my spine. "You didn't have to do that," I murmur, low enough that only he can hear. "They would have let you forget me. Marry her. Smooth it over." "I tried," he says. "For about half an hour. It felt like swallowing ashes." Before I can answer, he moves. The Alpha King of Dravorn, armor, sword, and all drops to one knee in front of me. The hall gasps as one living thing. My heart stops. "Caleb," I breathe. "Get up." "You can't." "I can," he says. His voice shakes. "The question is whether I will be allowed to stand again." Up close, I can see how hard this is for him. Not the kneeling, his body obeys him well enough, but the exposure, the way his hands tremble where they rest on his thigh, the way his gaze refuses to leave my face, as if looking away would make me disappear. "Talia of the Outer Ring," he says, and somehow makes my name sound more important than any title in this room. "I have made you many promises in private kitchens and dark corridors. I have kept too few of them." I swallow hard. "You were right," He goes on, and the admission clearly costs him. When that hall turned on you, I chose the kingdom over you, over us. I told myself it was duty. His mouth twists. The truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of losing your throne? I ask, trying to make my voice lighter than the moment deserves. Afraid of losing myself, he says simply, because every day I spent with you, I remembered the boy I was before this crown. The one who burned stew and laughed at his mother's bad lute songs. The one who believed food could fix things power never could. The hall fades around us. There is only his voice, low and rough. Your food woke me, he says. The first bowl of broth you put in front of me did more than any victory feast the council organized. It made me feel something I'd been starving for and didn't even have a name for anymore. His eyes shine. Just a little. Your laughter, he continues, and his own almost escapes, broken and reverent. Unmade my armor. I would walk into this kitchen a king and find myself just a man with flour on his chest, hoping the woman stirring the pot would look at him like he was worth more than the metal on his shoulders. Heat climbs up my throat, spilling into my cheeks. My hands shake. He reaches up slowly, giving me every chance to move away, and takes one of my hands in both of his. His grip is warm and careful, like I'm something fragile he has finally learned not to crush. I cannot rule this kingdom, he says, and his voice breaks on the word cannot. If doing so means pretending you do not exist, I can sign treaties. I can command armies. I can stand in halls full of men who would rather see me alone than honest. But I cannot sit on that throne. He nods toward it, and eat food that tastes like nothing, while the woman who taught me how to feel again bakes in exile. The hall is so quiet I can hear individual breaths. The rain outside, my own heartbeat, wild and uneven. This is not a command, he says. I have given you too many of those already. Consider this, a plea. An alpha king on his knees. Begging. Please, Caleb whispers, fingers tightening around mine. Give me another chance to be the man you thought I could be when you stood in my court and told me my food was boring. Come back to my kitchens, my hall, my life. Not as a servant I can dismiss when politics get inconvenient, but as my partner, my equal, the one person whose hunger I will spend the rest of my life trying to satisfy. The choice hangs between us like steam over a pot. Behind him I can see the council, pale and furious, the nobles stunned, the servants wide-eyed. Every future I thought I understood shifting, realigning around this impossible moment. He is offering me a kingdom and making it sound like a confession. I could walk away. I could leave him kneeling here in front of the people who expect him to be untouchable, prove to them that Omegas do not always bow to power. But when I look down at him, at this man who has spent his life being worshipped and feared, now shaking as he waits for an answer from a girl who once slept behind an oven, I see more than a king. I see the boy in the cottage. I see the man in my kitchen, blowing on my burned hand, whispering that they can have his crown but not his cravings. I see the future that could be built from both. I take a breath that feels like stepping off a cliff. Get up, I say softly. Pain flickers across his face. He starts to withdraw his hands. I hold on. Get up, I repeat, tugging him gently. I won't have my king on his knees when I say yes. Shock flares in his eyes. Yes? Yes, I say, louder now, for the hall as much as for him. To another chance, to your terrible onion skills, to your relentless hunger, to rebuilding this kingdom's heart from the kitchens outward. The hall exhales as one. A few people cheer, recklessly. Others look horrified. I don't care. Caleb surges to his feet, still holding my hand like he's afraid I'll vanish if he lets go. There will be consequences, he murmurs, almost dazed. They will say I'm weak. Let them, I answer. We'll feed them until they forget why they were angry. A real smile breaks over his face then, bright and disbelieving and so full of relief that it hurts to look at. In that case, he says, voice steadying, we have work to do, Talia. Yes, we do, I agree, squeezing his fingers. Starting with breakfast. The hall erupts into noise arguments, laughter, outrage, joy. But for the first time, it doesn't sound like a threat. It sounds like life. I make him wait. After the hall, after the gasps and the kneeling and the yes that shook the kingdom, I ask for time, and I take it. I slip away before the council can corner us, before the nobles can turn my life into a story they own. I walk back to the outer ring alone, cloak pulled tight. heart pounding louder than my footsteps. The bakery is dark when I push the door open. The ovens have gone cold again, their mouths black and empty. I sit on the floor with my back against the warmest of the bricks, knees pulled to my chest, and stare at the ashes. I could stay here. Be Talia the baker, not Talia the king's problem. Feed orphans and farmers and pretend my bones don't remember the feel of his hands. But every time I close my eyes, I see him on his knees. A knock rumbles through the wood. Before I can stand, the latch lifts and he's there, filling the doorway not as a king in gold, but as the man from my kitchen. Black leather, male, rain still dripping from his hair. No crown, no guards, only a sword at his hip, which he unbuckles, setting it carefully on the floor before he steps inside. "I thought you might not come," I say. "I thought you might bolt the door," he answers. I was prepared to knock until my knuckles bled. He takes off his gauntlets next, laying them beside the sword. With each piece of armor he sheds, something in my chest loosens. When he finally looks up, there is no Alpha King, no legend. Just Caleb, eyes tired and hopeful and scared in a way I've never seen. "I left everything that makes me terrifying outside," he says quietly. "All I brought is me. And your appetite," I murmur, "because if I don't joke, I'll cry." "That too," he admits. I stand and cross to the hearth, striking flint until a small flame catches. We feed it together, kindling, then logs until the bakery fills with the familiar crackle and glow. The shadows soften. So do we. We talk. Not about treaties, or councils, or Ilara. About dough that refused to rise on the coldest nights. About the first time he burned stew without his mother there to laugh. About the day I realized I loved the orphans more than I loved my own safety. "I won't be owned again," I say at last, voice low. "Not by hunger, not by a crown, not even by you." He nods, stepping closer. "Then don't belong to me," he says. "Belong with me. Partner, not possession. You run the hearth, I'll run the hall. We meet in the middle." "King and chef?" I ask. "Alpha and Omega," he corrects softly. "Man and woman, both of us allowed to be hungry." The fire paints him in gold and shadow as he steps between my knees, big hands settling on my waist with a care that makes my throat ache. Slowly, giving me all the time in the world to shove him away, he lifts me onto the counter the same way he did in my kitchen, only now there's no council outside the door, no verdict hanging over our heads. Just us. His forehead rests against mine, breath warm and uneven. "Talia," he whispers, mouth brushing the corner of my lips. "For the rest of my life, I will eat the food and the chef, if she'll have me." The words are ridiculous. They are reverent. They are him. My laugh breaks on a sob. "Then you'd better have a strong stomach." I breathe, because I'm not easy to digest. His answering smile is crooked and perfect. "I've noticed." I wrap my arms around his neck, drag him closer, and finally say the one word I've been swallowing for far too long. "Yes." His kiss tastes like smoke and rain, and every promise we haven't learned how to keep yet. His hands hold me like I'm something holy. For the first time since I was 5 years old behind a stolen oven, I believe I might actually be. People talk. They always do. They call it the King's Hearth now, the old bakery with its crooked sign and stubborn ovens. By day, it feeds the outer ring and half the palace staff. By night, the Alpha King is often seen slipping through the alley door, crown abandoned, hands already reaching for the nearest loaf, and the woman behind the counter. They say he eats like a starving man when he's there, tearing into bread and stew with a joy that makes him look almost boyish. They say he kisses the baker between orders, flour in his hair, her laughter echoing off the stone. They say peace has never tasted so good. Some call it foolish, this love story between a king and an Omega with flour on her hands. Others call it dangerous, but in taverns and farmhouses and cramped rooms above the market, a different tale takes root, that sometimes the sharpest blade in the kingdom isn't a sword at all. It's a wooden spoon in the grip of a soft, stubborn heart that refused to stop feeding a man until he remembered how to feel. Thank you for listening to Talia and Caleb's story. Where in the world are you watching from, and what was your favorite moment in their journey?